a land, obviously, of plenty. And she walked through this security, down this aisle, barbed wire, all that good stuff. And over on the other side, there was nothing except destroyed buildings and that kind of thing. Just desolation. And yet, the world will look at that and they want to destroy Israel. They don't look at that in the sense that, in my mind, would be natural. And they say, man, we'd like some of that. But they just want to take it, I guess. I think that's also the case with the United States. We are a very rich nation. I think we're maybe too rich because we're letting it get to us. Some have. But other countries are risking their lives to come in here. And yet they would like to change it. You can see what a Christian nation can do. And by the way, we're not a Christian nation anymore. We've had our President of the United States explain to the world powers that we're not a Christian nation anymore. I'll let you make your decision on that. But sadly, he's probably the first one to boldly make such a statement. But we certainly are a long ways from where we were. So that's very much like walking from Israel into the Gaza Strip, coming from another country into the United States or going back. And it's the same thing that they had with a problem here with the evil in a country. For some reason, we're afraid of God. The world's people are. They told him to get out. So that's the miracle. The two miracles that we've covered so far, the calming of the storm, and God can do that in your life and will do that in your life. It doesn't say He'd take you out of the storm. It said He will calm the storm. If we have the faith we need to have, which we'll talk some about today, then the storm won't bother us. We'll just wait on Him to calm it, I guess. But with that, and then the evil in our life. There's evil in our life, and we recognize that there is. You recognize that there is. I've never bothered to discriminate between what's evil and what's natural. But in fact, anything bad happens to me, I think it's evil. But it's not. Some things are quite natural. But there is evil in our life. We run across people that way. I can think of some incidents in my life. Just recently. To me, it worked out to be good. But I had some gypsies come to the house and say they just happened to have this load of blacktop. And I bought it. I mean, I had it done. But now I'm quite happy to have the blacktop. But let's face it, those people were out doing what they could, not only to cheat people, but to cheat the government. And folks, if you're cheating the government, you're a thief. I don't care that it's the government. If you're cheating the government, anybody that you owe money to, you're cheating. You're a thief. But anyway, there's a lot of evil among us. We have to deal with that. Sometimes we're evil. Make sure that's not in your life. But He gets rid of the evil. But today, we have two more miracles. And every one of us, we may not be able to quite pick out the evil that we might be, or we may not have had any storms in our life recently. Biggest storm I've had in my life recently is some little problem with my car. I think it cost me, no, it was an alternator. It took $150, which I easily had to fix it. Now, that's a big storm in my life. I've got it made, and many of you do too. But the true storms in our life, God could take care of, and He will, and He does. But He leads us to some of those things. This was not by accident, none of this. He wanted to show the disciples, and He wants to show you the power He has over the storms in our lives and over the evil that comes in their life. Now He also wants to give them firsthand firsthand demonstration of His power over sickness and death. There's none of us in here that doesn't have to deal with sickness at one time or another, in some way or another. and death. Now, we just had, as we mentioned earlier, we just had Monday had a member of our church, been a member quite a while, die. Those things happen. I'm going to die. Now, of course, I'm not sick today. Some think maybe it's mental with me so far, but I'm not sick today, but I'm going to die. And it probably won't be the most pleasant thing that happens to me. It happens to all of us. We get sick and we die. But Christ is in charge of all that. He has the ability to take care of it. And all these 4 stories, they had a good outcome. But we're going to talk about a dead girl and a sick woman. And you know, though, both of those ended up dying. They're not here today. We all go through that. So sickness and death are something that we just have to go through. Now, in the 40th verse, now we're finally getting to the sermon today. Now, when Jesus returned, a crowd welcomed him. Now, this is a kind of a strengthening of the fact that Christ knew what he was doing, and they knew what Christ was doing, and he took them on the boat to that demoniac, and then he brought them back to the city. And this was all on purpose. He is the one that pointed out what had happened with the sick woman. And, of course, everybody knew about Jairus' daughter because he spoke to Christ. But this was something they purposely went to. And by the way, if Jesus had wanted to, he could have gone and healed the girl before she died. That wouldn't have been the lesson he wanted you and I to get, that he wanted the disciples to get. But it's interesting where he allowed her to die. There was another woman there that took care of the sickness part. But then a man named Jairus, the ruler of the synagogue. Now, that was an important person in the synagogue. It wasn't the Sanhedrin or anything like that. Be like this church. It might be me as a pastor or somebody, maybe a business administrator. I'm not sure if he was clergy, in a sense. But he took care of the needs of the church, decided who would speak, and those kind of things, kept order. So it was an important person to that synagogue. It's interesting that the synagogue had already kicked him out, not maybe this particular building, but the synagogues had kicked him out because he claimed to be Christ. And they knew he wasn't that. He claimed to be God. So they kicked him out and was going to execute him. And he slipped away. So the Jewish religious people were very much against Christ, even at this time. So it's interesting that this one ruler had the faith, if you will, or heard what he was doing and could do. Maybe it was for him any old port in a storm. I don't know. But he went to Jesus, pleading with him to come to his house because his only daughter, a girl of about 12, was dying. 12-year-old girl was, and they knew what dying was. It's interesting. It's hard for us to see that. We never see death as close as these folks did. They recognized death when they saw it. But as Jesus was on his way, now he did decide to go with the Jairus. Now that required some faith. I want to speak a little bit more about faith before I finish, but that required faith for him to go to Jesus, and especially with the negative things that had come from the other Jewish pastors and so forth, rabbis, I should say.